It's a time for pick it from China. Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we are going to be taking a close look at the X2 Ultra Edition. So when it comes to these game sticks, it's going to be a hit or miss. We have seen so many of these freaking things, but now we do have the X2 Ultra. You know, there are all kinds of weird versions out there, but the 3D 8K, we're not having 4K, we're having 8K now, Game Stick Lite. You know, they keep changing the names to make it interesting, but you know, the 8K, 4K, it's completely like BS. With the simple reason because these things are not having that. They're still using micro USB for the power, because you're going to be plugging this thing into your HDMI connection, and the USB is giving this thing some power. That's it. Most of the time I recommend getting 5 volt, let's say maybe 2 amps, to give this thing like juice. You can use the USB from your television, but it will have sometimes some problems that it can't boot up or having problems. However, a very short HDMI extension if the stick doesn't fit. In here we're finding the toilet paper manual with some basic explanation, but these things are just basic print. There's nothing special about it, with almost no explanation. So we have the different controller configuration, that is kind of cool. So this thing's super lightweight, no rumble function, but the overall quality of the buttons, particularly the shoulder and the triggers, are so much significant better than the other ones I've tested out. Think about the chemical PlayStation 2 controllers. It looks absolutely awesome with the orange color, and the overall configuration, it's absolutely great. Is it different than the other one? No, this is the same craziness. So what you're getting is actually, let's say, one dongle plugged in, and it will recognize both controllers. The second controller is more like this gray black version, also the same overall quality. Okay, this is kind of cool. They're giving us some extra caps that you can put over here. Okay, that's kind of cool, but not going to be using that. Let's see. Thank you. I don't know what did they like move away? Let's see. I have no idea. Okay, so what's in here? The 2.4 GHz dual wireless controller. Okay, so they're giving us like a little bit explanation here. Just states how you need to connect it. So that's what we're going to be doing, and let's see how it is with the overall quality. And I particularly, when it comes to transmitting, I did have some issues with my previous controllers with a different game box. Let's put in some rechargeable batteries. That makes it so much more convenient. Okay, so let's plug it in. We need to hold the home button if you want to activate the controllers. You can see it start blinking, searching for the dongle. It's not plugged in, of course. But that's it. Let's go. Yahoo! I'm kind of surprised that we do have the same menu over and over again. So that is clear that they're going to be using Emuelec in combination with the same interface. I have no idea how it's actually called. Maybe somebody of you there in the comment section knows. So let me know if you know what kind of theme it is. However, this thing is a very nice looking theme. Everything seems to be working when it comes to the picture over here. So I already mentioned before, I had some problems with some other game boxes with this particular controller. So let's see if we're going to be moving it onto the desk. But so far I don't have any connection issues. Okay, so let's keep going playing. So going into the Dreamcast list, you can see we're having this tiny picture. There was no moving pictures or like other, let's say, movies, whatever. So in here we're having the Genesis. We can make a favorite list, but what is also kind of cool that we can make not only favorites, but you can go to the search pressing Y. Sometimes it will take a little bit of a couple of seconds. So let's say we're going to be searching for the Sonic game like always. And let's see. Let's go to the left where we can get into the list. Seems to be the way we can making favorites in here. So that's kind of cool. We can search the games and then make another list. So Sonic is kind of a little bit of an overall, like say, mess. You can see over here having Mega Drive, Super NES, Genesis Arcade, but not every system is implemented, or at least it showcases here. So we need to guess what it is. But most of them will have an overview, so that's kind of cool. So Sonic Boom on the Commodore 64, and that's it. You know, there's all kinds of cool stuff in here. Pocket Adventure, and I'm guessing this is the Neo Geo Pocket. So let's boot it up. We'll give you the Gamebox logo, and then we're going to be moving into the emulator. But yep, it's going to be booting through RetroArch. The home button doesn't do anything. This doesn't also do anything. Select the start will give you the menu of RetroArch, and here we can make a quick load, quick save. But so far I can see there is nothing we can actually do. We do have like this weird screen or actually like weird screen, like widescreen shenanigans. And this is like a hit or miss with these game boxes. Some of them will have don't have this problem at all, and some of them have like very nice bezels or aspect ratio set to 4:3. But okay, so this is what it is. So they completely messed that part up. But yeah, let's start off with the game itself, because this is going to be a lot of fun playing this old school game. Oh man, Sonic Pocket Adventure is really cool. It's kind of weird if you think about it, a Sonic game on the Neo Geo Pocket. Nevertheless, I think it's absolutely a great game. It's one of my favorites to play on my Neo Geo Pocket. Also a very expensive one if you want to collect them complete in box. However, emulation performance, beside the widescreen shenanigans, is great. No like weird screen tearing or whatsoever, full speed. And that's what we can actually expect with these, let's say, cheaper game boxes now. The 8-bit stuff, 60-bit, the really old school stuff will run just fine. But let's move on to some other testing. So I wanted to get into the system of the Sega Master System. However, getting into the game, it just froze. And that happens a lot. So let's reboot it and let's try it again. Oh, hey, it does work. Okay, that's great. I just wanted to showcase that, because sometimes if something crashes you can just restart it. You don't need to restart the full system. But let's get into the Game Boy Advance, and this is another system that sometimes struggle, not because these things are not powerful enough, they completely mess up the emulator setup. And that's a downside to this particular product, is that if there's something wrong, there is no way of actually fixing it. The other side is, if you don't want to mess with settings, there is actually nothing you can just mess up. But so far, so good. Sega CD, and another system that has a couple of hidden gems. Oh man, Final Fight is such a fun game, where this game has been ported to all kinds of systems. The Sega CD version is my favorite one, especially with the amazing soundtrack that they also implemented on this game stick. So that's great, and this is just a lot of fun and a blast to the past. So when it comes to the Final Fight CD game, man, it's going to be more expensive to buy now than ever. I've been buying a couple of, let's say, PAL and different regions, because this is just actually one of the I think this is just a single game that I have this freaking device, this original Sega CD for. But when it comes to game mechanics, I personally still love to play Street of Rage #2. Or Remake. That one is really good. But let's push this stick to the limit with some Sega Dreamcast now. And yeah, the Dreamcast from the start, you can just hear it stutters. So it's not going to be running on full 60 FPS. So that is what it is with these game sticks, where they call them Pro, Ultra, whatever they call them. It's just one big freaking lie. There's nothing ultra about this. If it was an ultra stick, you could like have better performance and overall 60 full FPS on Sega Dreamcast and Sega Saturn. But where you're not paying a lot of money for it now, I think we cannot really complain there. However, you need to take consideration, these sticks are great for old school stuff, but getting into the Sega Dreamcast, it's going to be more challenging than ever. But with the arcade part of the Sega Naomi arcade, this is such a cool device. However, you're going to be seeing the same problems that we have seen with the Dreamcast overall performance. It looks kinda good with full 60 FPS. I can just hear from the audio on that it is not running on the full speed too. However, it's still playable. So when it comes to that, that's kinda cool. And then we're having the Dolphin Blue test. But you can hear that it struggles. But we have been testing out all kinds of, say, basic arcade machines. However, where we had like a lot of issues with, let's say, Dolphin Blue and all the craziness, there is still so much that we can actually play of the MAME systems. No problem whatsoever there. PlayStation is the same shenanigans that we have seen many times before, and what do I mean with that? So when it comes to the audio, some of the games will have no audio whatsoever, or they just don't want to add them, or they completely mess it up, or want to save some space, because some games are like 90 megabytes, and when you're going to be adding audio, it's going to be like over a couple of hundred. So that's maybe one of the reasons, so they can slap more stuff on the same amount of SD card. And they're using sometimes 64 gigabytes or something like that. And it's just not enough for having a lot of different systems implemented on this. However, the emulation of PlayStation 1 is great. So moving into the PlayStation Portable, here we do have some options to get into the settings by pressing select and start, because they're using a separate PP emulator. So that is kind of weird that they went for the stupid thing for 2x resolution. So that's kind of weird, because it will have so much like the negative struggles on the machine itself. Okay, so let's go to the anti-stroke filtering, everything off, and let's go. We just wanted to see how far we can push it, having set to 1x resolution, no frame skipping. And it seems to be having a stable 50 frames per second, so the overall performance for the PlayStation Portable is not bad at all. But the unfortunate part is every single time you need to set this certain, let's say, settings, because with the reason there is no, let's say, general settings you can get into. So in my opinion, they completely messed it up with the PlayStation Portable part. So let's move on in some Super NES. Let's go back to the 16-bit era, and those will run just fine. And they implemented some weird filter over it again. That is something they're doing, and to make it a little bit more smoother when you're going to be using the game stick on a 40-inch and bigger television. But so far it doesn't really affect the frames per second on these games. Also, at this point I've been playing some time with the controller. I don't notice any weird delay that I've seen with the previous models. So far so good. Next up, some cruising the USA. Let's see how they configure the buttons. Okay, the A is actually the A button. D-pad doesn't do anything. We can use the analog stick like it was in the original game. But when it comes to emulation performance and the 64, you can just see that there is not a lot of weird things going on with the Cruising the World game. But that's to do that this has like a great compatibility with lower-end chips. It seems to be that this game is not very difficult to emulate compared with games like GoldenEye and some other ones. So when it comes to N64, basic stuff is playable now on these game sticks. But if you're getting into the list itself, like deeper in it, you will find a lot of games that will not run at all or have like a lot of stuttering, making them absolutely unplayable. Joystick wise, I do know, or it is just this freaking game that I suck at, but it's very sensitive. But beside that, the emulation performance is great. So pressing select and start at the same time will give you the main menu. In here we're having emulation settings or emulation station settings. So it has been set to 720p, no idea why, because this monitor is high resolution. I've been shutting down the intro video, reset input configuration, would be very careful with that. Unlock settings, but I've been messing around with it but couldn't get it to unlock. And then having the controller settings where you can set a certain joystick. So if you want to play 4-player mode, you need to get into this to mess around to put every controller into certain settings. We have even like 8-player configuration that I'm not going to be using into the game itself. Configure a controller. So if you're going to be setting a new controller up, you can do it over here. You can even pair a Bluetooth controller. Is the Bluetooth connectivity active in this dongle? However, I will just use like the USB dongles or the USB hub. But again, this is what you're getting when it comes to the menu. There is not actually much to see. Okay, so here having the game stick itself. So when it comes to the game stick, so let's remove the dongle, the SD card, and they're always having these they're always having these cheap SD cards, no brands whatsoever. So it seems to be this has 128 gigabyte, but there is still not a lot of interesting stuff on there. So yeah, that's the problem with these dongles, and I think most of them, if they stop working, it's the SD card, and that is quite unfortunate. Let's get myself on Pry tool and let's open it up. So when it comes to the game sticks, the reason I wanted to open up to see what kind of specs, but also when it comes to, let's say, the overall cooling performance. Some of these things have some serious issues where there is no cooling whatsoever. So the main problem is that we also have no, let's say really good solution, because these things are so compact. Let's open it up. He does want to get opened up. And let's see what kind of PCB. On black PCB, that means that there's something new going on over here. Okay. So can we remove this piece of metal? That's what they're doing, just slapping on the metal. Oh, it's a double-sided tape. Okay. I think there's not even some kind of a thermal tape. But seeing the S905L explains a lot. So the S905L comes just with a basic quad core and just also a very basic GPU in the inside. I think it was something called the MP450 or some kind. So that explains why some of the Dreamcast stuff doesn't run great. However, it's kind of interesting to see they're using actually Kingston memory. That is something you don't see very often. Some around, like, I think it's 1 GB of RAM, nothing much there. So the PCB of this thing looks kind of nice, like manufacturer's brand new, but that is not the case. It says over here 2022. It's still like older, but not like prehistoric old. So this is actually what it is with these dongles. There is I think this is for the Wi-Fi antenna or something for connectivity. But that's it. Cooling wise, they're just slapping on this piece of metal to give it a little bit of cooling. But if this is going to be enough, that is something we're going to be figuring out in the future. The X2 Ultra, there's nothing ultra about it. They're still using the S905 basic chipsets, where resulting having overall mediocre emulation performance with some Sega Dreamcast, and having a lot of problems with Thomas Wave and Sega Naomi systems. However, they implemented a better controller now with the kit, where these A, B and XY buttons feel really cheap. The D-pad feels quite nice, and the overall quality is so much significant better than the PlayStation fake ones. Yeah, but the controller has no rumble. That's a little bit of a downside. So it's really cheap solution. Same game stick with a little bit better overall performance of the menu, but still very limited. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what do you think of this, and it will be great to see you in the next video.